Hello and thank you for joining us. President Trump is urging House Republicans to stand united and pass his legislative agenda into law. But all indications show the GOP conference still has a ways to go before that can happen. The president appeared on Capitol Hill Tuesday for a 2-hour closed-door meeting with Republican lawmakers. He later told reporters he's confident the bill would pass, and he had a message for Republican defectors.
It was really a meeting of unity. We had tremendous unity. There's a lot of love in the room, and I think we're going to have a big victory. I think anybody that didn't support it as a Republican, I would consider to be a fool.
Republicans can only afford 3 defections on the bill due to the party's slim majority in the House and because all Democrats are expected to vote no. Some hardline conservatives are demanding deeper spending cuts, while a group of Republicans in blue states are holding out to raise the cap on state and local tax deductions, or SALT. House Speaker Mike Johnson characterized the disagreements as simply part of the process.
We never promised it'd be easy. We never thought this was going to be an effortless process, because when you're doing this much in a bill this large and complicated and comprehensive, there's a lot of opinions in the room. We are going to land this plane and deliver this, and we're proud what we've accomplished together. Every member of the conference can be proud of this legislation in the end.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez and CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion both join us now. So, Nancy, what is President Trump's message to congressional Republicans, particularly the holdouts?
The message is get on board and get on board now. And there were some veiled threats, according to reporting from inside and outside that meeting that the president had with House Republicans today, where he basically signaled, you know, if you don't vote for this bill and you don't start supporting it now, perhaps we might support an opponent of yours in a future election. He even said that one Republican who frequently votes against the party doesn't deserve to be in Congress any longer. Those are the kinds of comments that over the past few months have worked for him when it comes to bringing wavering Republicans on board. We'll see if he can do it this time, especially when he's trying simultaneously to convince some moderate Republicans who want changes to the tax measures and some staunch conservatives who think that the cuts to Medicaid should be even deeper and even quicker.
Why is the president insisting on this package being wrapped up in one bill? What are the pros and cons?
Well, because extending the Trump tax cuts, which is the primary goal of this legislation, would cost, according to the CBO, $3.8 trillion. And in order to pass this legislation the way they want to, without any Democratic support, they need to offset that with steep cuts. So it's a big bill. You know, if you're spending trillions and you want to try to cut trillions, that is something that Congress historically has not been very good at, making major cuts to spending. Even smaller cuts often stymie them. So you can see why the needle that the president has to thread here to get it through the House, let alone through the Senate, is really, really narrow.
So, Nikole, we just heard from Nancy what the presidential pitch is. What are you hearing about how that was received?
Well, it's a mix. You know, obviously there were some lawmakers who told me they felt energized by the president's appearance today, that he kind of put a marker down as far as what he'd like to see in this bill and moving it forward. But there are others, for instance, the head of the House Freedom Caucus, a more conservative member, who said that the president didn't do enough to convince skeptical Republicans that this bill is adequate enough. So it kind of depends who you talk to. But ultimately, it seems that it's possible this bill could be nearing compromise. Speaker Johnson indicating that a short time ago after meeting with a group of moderates. We know the Rules Committee will be meeting later tonight. So certainly from the Speaker's perspective, it's full steam ahead.
Well, you mentioned one meeting. Where else do we go from here?
Yeah, well, that meeting is pretty important because this will be the last hurdle for the bill before it heads to the House floor. This Rules Committee meeting that is taking place at 1 a.m. So, you know, for those who like to stay up late, get your popcorn. But I did speak with Congressman Ralph Norman, who sits on that committee. He was also part of the Budget Committee and was one of those Republicans who actually voted against the package, only to reverse his vote and vote present. I asked him about why this committee is meeting overnight. Take a listen to his response. But what do you say to people who say you're trying to push this bill through in the dead of night?
Well, you know, Pelosi had in her day, pass it, then you can read it. I mean, we're the ones getting up at 1 in the morning. and it's going to be broadcast out the minute we vote on it. It's going to be everything's going to be voted out, and people will see everything we vote on.
So he says they're going to power through, and then part of the reason why they're doing this is so that if it does clear the Rules Committee, potentially the Speaker and GOP leadership could put this bill on the floor at some point tomorrow, Wednesday, which would be even ahead of the Speaker's projected goal. You know, we'd heard a vote was possible on Thursday. Certainly, the goal has always been to do this by Memorial Day, but really, House Republicans feel turbocharged by the president's appearance today and want to try to push this bill through as quickly as they can.
Nancy Cortez and Nikole Killion, thank you both so much. As we've been reporting, disagreements remain on whether Congress should raise or eliminate the cap on the state and local tax deduction known as SALT. This cap is the maximum amount of state and local taxes that can be written off on federal tax returns. Some Republicans who represent districts in blue states have threatened to withhold their votes unless the SALT cap is lifted above where it currently stands at $10,000. One of the Republican lawmakers who has indicated he has no plans to cave is New York's Mike Lawler, and he joins us now. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What did the president tell you today, and did he change your mind at all?
Well, the president obviously is anxious to get a bill passed and obviously wants to be able to enact his agenda, inclusive of extending many of the provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. But I've been very clear for well over 2 years since coming to Congress that I would never support a bill that does not adequately lift the cap on SALT. And we have been working in good faith to come to an agreement with leadership on a number that will provide real and lasting tax relief to our constituents. The fact is, districts like mine are among the highest tax districts in the country. My district, I have 3 counties of the 4 that I represent that are in the top 16 highest property tax counties in America. And so when you combine property taxes and state income taxes, it creates a real tax burden on folks. And this is an issue of double taxation and fairness. And the fact is that the cap on SALT, the $10,000 cap, was put in place as a pay-for previous provisions under the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So we are simply seeking fairness. We have been working.
What number is fair, Congressman?
We're in the process of coming to an agreement with leadership and hope to have more details later tonight. But the fact is, this is about a much higher number than has been presented in the bill, ensuring that it covers the length of the 10-year period and lifting the income cap that was put in place in the bill to a higher number so that we can actually provide real tax relief to middle class and working class families across this country.
When it comes to cuts to Medicaid, the president said he only wants to address waste, fraud, and abuse. But as currently written, this bill would impose new work requirements on some recipients. An estimate from the Urban Institute as of April finds as many as 5.2 million people could lose coverage. It wouldn't go into effect until 2029. But where do you stand on this issue?
Well, throughout, I've made very clear that we are not seeking to kick eligible recipients off of Medicaid. But Medicaid is a means-tested program. It is there to help those who need it. And traditional Medicaid, of course, covering the IDD community, seniors, children, single mothers. So we want to make sure that this program is protected, that it is sustainable. And so what we have talked about and what is in the bill is making sure that illegal immigrants are not collecting benefits. In my state of New York, they're spending $1.2 billion on illegal immigrants. We want to make sure that people who are not eligible do not remain on the program. Under the Biden administration's rules, people could remain on Medicaid for up to a year, even if they weren't eligible. And finally, yes, work requirements. The fact is, if you are an able-bodied adult without dependents, you should be trying to work. You should be trying to ensure that you lift yourself up out of poverty or out of need ultimately.
Would you
if
support
employer-based health care, or if you can purchase health care on the open market ultimately. But if you're just choosing not to work, that's not acceptable. And most Americans agree with that.
Congressman, would you support moving up those work requirements to prior to 2029 if, in fact, you get the SALT cap to a number you're more comfortable with? And is that something that's on the table?
Well, I think there's broad consensus that it should be moved up from 2029. Obviously, there's been a lot of back and forth with leadership and with the White House to make sure that that can actually be put into effect. So I know they're still working through those details.
Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you for your time.
Thank you.